is Miss Lizzie. I don't ever smoke the dizzy, but we can always share some ditzies. It's just a cup in time. This song doesn't have to rhyme. Life's all of us, not every moment we can be feeling fine. I wanna share a moment, just a second if you will, maybe even a cup of thrill. We could share this performance. It's tea time, come sit with me.
Well, welcome guys. Miss Liz is back. That's right. And we had an incredible afternoon with Michelle Torrey on talking about Fox Creek and slavery and the history of the United States. Tonight we have a returning guest and a good friend of mine, Doug Lawrence, in the house, and we're going to be sharing his tea. And his tea is healing, passionate, and feeling. That's the tea we're serving tonight. But before we get started, you guys know how Miss Liz rolls. Get over to all those platforms: Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Clapper, Lemonade, Blue Sky, all those good platforms. Give those a like, follow, and subscribe. And if you notice that the guests are on those platforms, give them a like and follow as well, because that's how we support one another. Then jump over to the podcast apps: Podbean, iHeartRadio, Listen Notes, Deezer, Apple Podcasts, Spreckle, and Spotify. Miss Liz is on all of those, and the ones I haven't mentioned, I'm on all of the other ones as well. So give those a like, follow, and subscribe, and get these tea times out there, because they do make a difference for the guest and for listening audience that resonate with the stories. Also, jump over to babyboomers.org. Miss Liz has been partnered with them for almost 4 years, and they have over 50 different podcast shows. If you're looking to be featured on different shows and Miss Liz doesn't have the flavor you're looking for, you can check out those people over there on babyboomers.org. Some incredible hosts over there as well. I'd like to always celebrate the colleagues that are podcasting over there on babyboomers.org. Now let's get over to the disclaimer and then an intro, and we're going to get Doug in here. We're going to have some fun with you guys tonight, and we're going to talk about his book, The Silent Pandemic, and some other books that he's written in the past. Disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live show. Miss Liz's Tea Time is a global platform dedicating to sharing real-life stories, diverse perspectives, and meaningful conversations that inspire awareness, healing, and connection. I, Miss Liz, is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment during the live broadcast, please grant StreamYard permission to display your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that all the content brought forward during any Tea Time show is presented in good faith. However, discussions may include opinions, beliefs, and perspectives that do not necessarily represent the views of Miss Liz or the Tea Time platform. Information shared by guests is based on their own experiences and is perceived to be accurate at the giving time of airing. All guest viewers and participants are responsible for using their own good judgment when considering any action or decision that may relate to these discussions. Some episodes may cover sensitive topics, not including trauma, abuse, grief, mental health, and other emotionally triggering subjects. Listeners' and viewers' discretion is strongly advised. Tea Time and Miss Liz is an open discussion forum designed to offer insight, inspire awareness, and create connection. It is not a substitute for professional, medical, legal, or therapeutical advice. If you require professional support, please seek assistance from qualified professionals or trusted resources in your area. If you have any questions regarding this disclaimer or the content of this discussion, you are welcome to contact me, aka Miss Liz, directly at my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com, or visit my link tree at Miss Liz's Tea Time. By choosing to participate in, comment on, or view these live shows, you acknowledge and accept this disclaimer. Your participation is entirely voluntary. I, Miss Liz, welcomes you to join the conversation with an open heart, and if at any time you feel this platform is not right for you, I respect your wishes and decision and welcome you back whenever you are ready. Tea Time and Miss Liz is serving truth and awareness one cup at a time. Well, welcome to Tea Time with Miss Liz, where every conversation is served with truth, compassion, and understanding that no one should have to walk through life's most difficult seasons alone. Today's guest is more than a returning voice at the table. He is a valued friend, supporter of Tea Time with Miss Liz, and someone whose dedication to mentoring and human connection continues to touch lives around the world. Please help me in welcoming back Doug Lawrence, international recognized mentor, author, speaker, thought leader, and founder of Talent C. With more than 3 decades of mentoring and leadership experiences, Doug has devoted his life to helping people feel seen, supported, and reminded that they matter. Through his work that he has mentored thousands and continues to redefine what meaningful guidance, trust, and compassionate connection can accomplish. Today, we are digging deeply into his powerful award-winning book called The Silent Pandemic. Grief is often carried quietly. It can hide behind a smile, a busy schedule, professional success, or the words, "I'm fine." Yet beneath the surface, many people are navigating losses that others may never fully see or understand. Doug's work reminds us that grief is not something we simply get over. It is something we learn to carry, process, and move through with patience, understanding, and the support of others. Today, we'll explore why grief has become a silent pandemic, the many forms of loss people experience, how mentoring creates safe spaces for healing, why connection matters during grief, supporting others without trying to fix them, turning pain into compassion, purpose, and service. Doug reminds us that sometimes the greatest gifts we can offer another human being is not advice, it is our presence. So grab your favorite cup and join us for a heartfelt conversation filled with honesty, grief, healing, mentoring, and real life tea, truth, experience, and awareness. And let me get Doug in here and let's spill some tea. There we go. Can you hear me, Doug?
Yeah, I'm here and I hear you.
Let me see. There we are. I gotcha.
Oh,
Well, welcome back to the tea time table, Doug.
well, thank you so much. We were talking before the show started, and it's been a while that we haven't really had the chance to connect. And yet, I do recall that we both said to each other the last time that we weren't going to let that happen, but we did.
Yeah, we did. We let it happen too long. It's been way too long. So, Doug, for my first-time listeners who haven't heard any of your tea times yet or the radio show, tell them a little bit who you were as a little guy and who you are now.
So I grew up on a farm here in Saskatchewan. So it was a mixture of grain and cattle. Listeners don't really care what it was. It was a farm. So grew up on the farm, went to school, ended up joining the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And after 25 years and a bit of a battle with post-traumatic stress, I ended up retiring and got into working in the private sector and then back into government and leadership. And I discovered mentoring and started my own business focused on all things mentoring, and did that I'm still doing that, and it's evolving as we're speaking. Lost my mom to cancer, lost my wife to cancer. I don't like cancer, but so I've gone through that. I'm still struggling, fighting with grief from the loss of my wife. So I'm dealing with that and kind of trying to move forward as best I possibly can. And I've written 3 books, and 2 that have got a focus to mentoring / mental health and grief. And actually, thank you for the little plug there with Grief, the Silent Pandemic. It's the recipient of 5 global book awards. So that part's good. And I have this sense, this feeling that there's going to be 1 or 2 more awards for Grief, the Silent Pandemic, but we won't push to it. We'll just keep our fingers crossed.
Now I remember the last time you were on Tea Time, Doug, you were getting an award the next day, I believe, or you had just gotten one. I just remember that. We had talked about the silver award, I believe you got.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's been a long time. We've been away too long.
Far too long.
Far too long. Well, we have a question here for you, Doug. from Paula, and it's how did the idea for Talent C first begin?
So it started off, Talent C started off as Talent Shore. So if you take the word talent and then you plug in shore, Shore, on the end of it, what had happened was we had picked that was going to be the title, only to find out that there was too much close proximity to other names that were in much the same path. And so the lawyers that I was working with to set the company up and all that had suggested that you might want to think about something else. And so my wife Deborah and I used to go on a regular basis, once a month, I think it was, to get our nails done. So toenails done.
Not fingernails, toenails.
No, yeah. Point of clarification, toenail. So we were talking to the young ladies that were doing the toenail thing for us, and one of them said, "Wow, that's simple. Why are you stressing over something like that? It's Talent C." And the reason the C is symbolic of being able to, it's looking out over a large body of water, and you can go as far as you want to go, sort of the idea behind, a young person starting their career, with some thought, and that they can go career-wise as far as they would like. And so that's how how Talent C came to be. And it's stuck ever since then.
That's one thing I don't think we've ever talked about is the Talent C. We've talked about all the books, but I don't think we've ever talked about Talent C.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, and I had making you successful is what matters. I had a tagline, like that's what I used. And just we got everything all together and got, did the business cards, the letter, all that sort of stuff. So lots to think about and that, but at the end of the day, actually when I was thinking the original Talent Shore, how we envisioned that was we had a young lady sitting on the shore of this large body of water, and she was the one that was symbolic of the Talent Shore piece. So it's funny how when you take the time to just sit down and just open up your mind and let it wander a little bit, so that you come up with all these different ideas, and that was the one that kickstarted my journey, I guess, is the best way to describe it. But that's a good question. Thank you for that.
Oh, Doug, I thought it was like a talent show.
Oh, well, some days it is. Some days it is.
Mentoring, it's got a show in its own, right?
Yeah.
So what first inspired you, like your lifelong passion for mentoring, Doug?
It started, I was job coaching university students and helping them with their cover letter, resume, interview prep, all those sorts of things. And so I was doing that. And what would happen is they'd get hired and they'd get in the workplace, and then all this stuff would happen that they had no clue how to deal with. So they would reach out and say, Doug, how do I deal with this? And so I wouldn't tell them what to do, but I would ask a bunch of questions to help them think their way through what they needed to do. So using what I call the Socratic method, where you ask a series of questions to guide people to the answers, and it's without telling them how to do it it's basically without telling them what to do. And it just started to evolve, and they got referral after referral. And then finally one of them said, you know, Doug, you should really think about doing this for a living. We can't afford to pay you, but I'm sure somebody could. And so consequently, we started on the path of providing more and more free, we'll call it free help, to be able to help them work their way through a lot of the stuff that they needed to work with. And so I did market research, and I found that there was definitely a place for mentoring, and at various stages and levels. But what was missing was the training and the certification of mentors. And so I partnered with a company in the United States to create that. And we evolved over time where now I have a business partner in Alberta that basically is responsible for setting up and maintaining the training curriculum that we have for and certification for mentors today.
Well, we have some questions that are coming in. I want to get those out to you, Doug. The next one's from Jason, and it's, what does true mentoring mean beyond giving advice?
I'll give you the definition and you can think about it from there. So, mentoring is a two-way trusted relationship where both the mentor and the mentee learn and grow together on a personal and professional basis. So, some key things out of there is that mentoring isn't just your typical career development solution that you plug into an organization, and it's to help coach people through dealing with different things, but more importantly with securing employment and stuff like that. So but the definition, what I try to get people to understand is that what's really important here is the fact that mentoring has got a personal and professional development pathway to take. So when I'm going to mentor somebody, I'm always trying to find out whereabouts they are mentally and mental health wise. So I will sometimes ask them a series of 3 or 4 questions just so I can get it framed in my head whereabouts they are on their mental health journey, because that can also impact how I deal with them in a mentoring relationship.
So we have another question here for you, Doug, and it's from Bradley. Which lesson has mentoring taught you the most over the years?
Over the years, I think, the most important thing is, number one, is it comes back to what I was just commenting on, was the personal and professional growth. It's getting people to understand that it's really important. Another thing to think about is it's really important as a mentor to be able to communicate effectively. And we don't sometimes do all that horribly great of a job in that regard. So, yeah, what was the other part of the question?
Let me see if I can find it here. Let me see, where did we find it? Right here from Bradley. Which lesson has mentoring taught you the most over the years?
Mentoring has a place, business world, wherever. But what I've found with the research that I've been doing to help demonstrate that mentoring is part of the support structure for mental health, I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned coming out of all of this, is that, and it's helped me be recognized, not that that's a big deal, but is to be able to be recognized as a mental health mentor. So you can call it a grief mentor if you want. So that's probably the biggest thing that's come out of this as a mentor is those two things.
Well, we got a question here about the first book that you're on Tea Time with was what inspired you to write You Are Not Alone?
So that's book number 2. You Are Not
That was
Alone.
book number 2. And then The Silent Pandemic is book number 3, right?
Yeah.
What's book number 1? You were on for book number 1.
Book number 1 was The Gift of Mentoring.
Oh, yes. The Gift of Mentoring. Yes, that's right.
So basically mentoring 101. But what had inspired me to write You Are Not Alone, I saw, so it was written with the idea behind it that there was a place in the mental health journey for mentoring to play a role. And my focus for the You Are Not Alone was primarily on the mental health, post-traumatic stress, PTSD, because I went kind of, I did go through some PTSD myself with my time serving as a law enforcement officer and dealing with the trauma and all that sort of stuff that I went through. And so I wrote the book to address that. And then fast forward to grief, my whole story line around grief, the silent pandemic, it was much the same. It had a mentoring focus, but what it did was it took some lived experience that I had from the grief side of things to be able to provide some insight. So different types of grief that you may or may not experience, being able to reach out and ask for help, and sometimes just, asking for help, knowing what to say, when to say, and how to say it, all those important things. So that's kind of the sequencing of the three books.
Well, I'm going to pull up The Silent Pandemic so everybody can see this incredible book and we can talk about the cover. So tell us a little bit about this cover.
So it looks at it, when you think of grief and the silent pandemic, if you look at this, it's, you've got everybody that is experiencing grief at this particular stage is trying to go or return on their journey or get going on their journey, but they have this tumultuous environment that they have to transcend through in order to be able to get to a place where they feel safe and where they feel comfortable at hopefully starting to speak a bit more about their grief. Because what I found was that because of all the stuff, the cancer, dealing with COVID, all of that, there was so much grief filling the world that we needed to try and figure out how can we do that. So that was sort of the gist behind this picture. And actually, what we ended up, I had a person who consulted on the cover for me and took You Are Not Alone's cover and how it appears and all of that and brought that forward for Grief, the Silent Pandemic, and tried to do a bit of a blend of the two so that we still maintained the energy and enthusiasm for both covers.
Well, when the book for You Are Not Alone, I don't have it with me tonight, but it was a walkway, right? The paths were divided on the cover.
Yes.
And the colors were green, blue, and yellow, like similar to the colors that are on this cover that we're looking at right now.
I think the You Are Not Alone was a little brighter.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was more direction in it. Kind of like a support system. The colors were lighter, so it felt more support.
Yeah.
Where this cover feels like you're lost in the desert, lost in your grief.
Yeah. Yeah. Good way to describe it. Excellent.
Because that's what I see when I look at it. It looks like a lost desert, right? And then there's like this storm that's coming in that we never know how the grief is going to take over, because it, you could be fine for 1 year, 5 years, and then all of a sudden, poof, it hits you again.
Well, yeah, because I remember having a conversation with a guy who had lost his son 12 years ago, and he was still grieving.
So, Doug, why do you call the grief the silent pandemic?
Because what I saw was every time I turned around, somebody was struggling with their healing journey for grief. You could go to the grocery store and just stand there, and somebody would come up and say, "Oh, John passed away last night," or so it was all around us. It was swallowing us up, and I sort of saw it somewhat like COVID, because COVID swallowed us up, unfortunately, and it had such a big impact on our lives. Sometimes we just didn't recognize it, and I thought, okay, if COVID can be an epidemic, and it was, grief, which kind of follows in the same pathway, grief can be an epidemic. So grief, the silent pandemic, it feeds off of that.
Yeah. There's a comment that came in here. I just want to read it out. It's from Jason. One thing I'm appreciating most is the reminder that healing doesn't always require having all the answers. Sometimes it begins with simply having someone beside you.
I talk quite often. I talk about, at the end of the day, what we want. If we want to help others, we need to be able to walk beside them. We need to be able to create that safe place for conversations to take place. And it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to reach out, extend your hand, reach out and say, I need some help. It's okay to do that. And, I do it a lot. I reach out and ask for help. And even if it's, your best friend or whoever, your best friend who has poured a cup of tea for you, if you've got that person in your life, God bless you, because you're one of the lucky ones that, is going to be able to, it's going to help influence the direction that you go with your healing journey, because it's so easy to get off track.
Absolutely. So, Doug, during your grief, did you have support?
Yes. I had to, what's interesting was we did a celebration of life for Deborah when she passed, and I had, people coming up, some good friends and all of that. And they would, they'd say, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear about Deborah. Why don't we go for coffee, or why don't we go for lunch?" That was 5 years ago, and I'm still waiting for that coffee, and I'm still waiting for that lunch. And so one of the things I always tell people is, if you want to make a great contribution to the healing journey, if you make a commitment, you honor that commitment.
When we say we have each other's back, we got to really show that we have each other's back.
Exactly.
There's a big difference of saying I support you and really supporting you.
I belong to 2 support groups, and that's one thing that, the premise is that in those groups, that if you commit to show up, even if you just commit to show up for the weekly sessions, monthly sessions, whatever distance apart they are, but it's the fact that you actually show up for those sessions that has a huge impact, number one, on how the person feels about themselves, and how they feel that if this, you know, if Doug's walking in those shoes, it must be all right for me to walk in there, and Doug's asking for help, so it must be all right that I can ask for help as well. So it's, you know, kind of, it's trying to do as much as we possibly can, you know, in as little time as what we need to. So, but I know that I probably, I would say that I'm fortunate enough that if I need help, if I'm kind of stretching myself really thin, that I can usually shoot a text message, an email, or something and say, I need to go for a cup of coffee. Can you take the time to join me? Most of the times, with the odd exception, most of the time, people jump in the car and meet me at a coffee shop. And then it's a matter of, you know, just knowing what questions to ask, knowing what to say, when to say, and how to say it, to be able to provide the value that I'm searching for. And it's a matter of it's communicating. I need to be able to communicate how I feel, why I feel the way I do, and what I'm hoping, or my expectation of them, what it actually is.
I found, like, when my grandma died, everybody said, Liz, we got your back. If you ever need us, just call us. You know, why can't you call me? Right?
Yeah.
It's that call to call you to see if you're okay. Or a lot of people promise that, you know, we'll get together, like you just mentioned, during the services and stuff like that, and the celebrations. But then after that, it's almost like those words were not meant to ever happen.
That's interesting, because I made the observation. I went to somebody's funeral, and after the funeral was over, they stayed for their coffee, tea, and dainties and stuff, and then gone. You know, and
you never see these people again until someone else passes, right?
yeah, and I mean, you know, I'll give them their just, because for me, it was, I went to a funeral because it was a family member, I think, family or friend, and I probably shouldn't tell stories, but I went because I had this idea in my head that when it came to funerals, that people go to the funerals because they think they should. And when they're there, you know, they participate and all of that. And then when, you know, they say, okay, thank you everybody for coming. There'll be coffee, tea, and dainties in the hall next to the chapel. And so then you go and you're sitting there and you watch, and people get their fair share of dainties and coffee, and then they just slowly disappear. And I asked a couple of folks, I said, you know, what's the plan for providing support for these people? Oh, we don't do that.
Yeah. Well, we have a question here for you, Doug, and it's from Real Estate with Kate. What is one misconception people have about grief?
Oh, the biggest one is that it's going to have an ending to it, and it does not end. Yeah, it's one of the most common fallacies is, you know, it's going to end. I don't have to, you know, I do my time with the grief part, and then everything will be all right. And like I said earlier, there I had that one father who lost his son 12 years ago, and he still grieves.
Yeah. Grieving has no time limit on it.
No.
We have another question from Adventure Shows. Is there one mentor who has changed your own life forever, Doug?
You know, I've been truly blessed. I've had a great combination of mentors over the course of my career and that. I would have to say that the one that had the biggest influence was my uncle. Yeah, Uncle Benny, and he was in the Royal Canadian Air Force. And anytime I got together with him, it felt natural, and I knew that I could always ask him questions, and he wouldn't always give me the answer, but he'd kind of get me thinking about what the answer might be, and he was so he had that calming nature about him that he could help you to be able to work your way through all kinds of different things. So it would definitely be him.
Uncle Benny. I've never heard of Uncle Benny. This is the first time. And you've been on Tea Time, I think 5-6 times. Well, you're one of my guests that has been on the radio show. I think you and Jen were the only ones on the radio show that I had. So
okay. Yeah.
We have another question for you, Doug, and it's from Citrus. Has writing your books changed you personally?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I have a deeper appreciation for what is. I have a deeper appreciation for what could be. And I have a deeper appreciation for what can I change that I didn't think I could change before.
Well, you've answered this question already, but I want to get it up there again for you, Doug. And this is from another viewer. What inspired grief, the silent pandemic, and why do you call grief a silent pandemic? If you just want to
just
touch on that again.
Sure. Yeah, not a problem. The inspiration for grief actually came from, and I think we may have danced around answering this one, but it for the most part, it came from, so the grief part was because there was all this sea of grief all around us, and we were struggling. It was interfering with life in general, and just it was nasty is the best way to describe it. And so, how it came to be was predominantly with the passing of my wife, Deborah, in 2021. I dedicated part of the book to her because she was my inspiration, rightly or wrongly, for the writing of the book. But there were, that's just one part of it. The other part was there was all these people that were saying, gee, Doug, you should write another book. After I wrote The Gift of Mentoring, and then I did You Are Not Alone. And You Are Not Alone was inspired by some close friends saying, you should write a book, or you should write another book. And so Grief, the Silent Pandemic was much the same. It came from the push or the inspiration of others to be able to get things started, get things going, and then taking it right through to publishing it.
And sometimes we need that push, right? And obviously somebody wanted to read more of your writing, so they pushed you to write another one. We have a question here from Discovery Connecticut. How do you support someone who's grieving if you don't know the right words?
It comes back to what we said earlier, is that in situations like that, sometimes it's best to not say anything.
Right? It's that old saying, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all.
Yeah. And what I typically will always say to people is, some of the things you need to know is, when is it appropriate to ask these type of questions and stuff like that. And sometimes knowing when that's going to take place or knowing how to make that take place doesn't always come that easy. it sometimes is a bit of a struggle to be able to, you know, to get something going, a conversation. If you don't know what to say, ask.
Yeah. Doug, why is feeling heard often the beginning of healing?
Sorry, I missed that now.
Why is feeling heard often the beginning of healing?
Yeah, I asked myself that very same question, feeling hurt. Part of it is because we were never really given the chance to properly grieve. So we feel like nobody cared. So that was, part of it. Part of it is the aspect of what about the people that are left behind? Have I provided them with the tools they need to be able to navigate the sea of grief? Sometimes I'm okay there. Sometimes I'm not okay. Yeah.
Well, Doug, I want to talk about something that we were talking about backstage before we went live, and that's writing your own obituary so our family members don't have to do it for us. How do you feel about that?
I helped write my mom's. I guess that would have been the first exposure to writing an obituary, was the one for my mother, and we did it as a family. And then when Deborah passed, I took it upon myself to write it. And we did something when we did we had a family gathering. Actually, we opened it up to large people, to a lot of folks, and I had designated certain family members to write up a spiel, like my two children had to write about their mother experience of life with their mother and stuff like that. And then we had some friends, and then Deborah was heavily involved in a union. So one of the union heads of the union was asked to come and speak. If you need notes, go ahead and write. But so we did all of that, and I think writing the obituary, which I took on myself. So to specifically answer your question, I would have to say that I think each family needs to deal with it in its own way. What are you most comfortable with? Rather than, you and I sitting here as the soothsayers of all the wisdom and knowledge and saying, no, you should,
Well, we know what that word should means in grief, right? Nobody
Yeah.
should be shoulding us during grief. That's
or
one word that we shouldn't be using with anybody when they're grieving.
Or at any time. I had a professor of kinesiology, I think it was kinesiology, professor at the university here, that taught me one thing and one thing only, and that was there are no shoulds in life. And her and I used to supervise hockey referees together, and I'd be talking away and I'd say, they should have done that, Doug. I know that's not right.
But it's so easy to roll off the tongue, right? You
Yeah.
should do this. You should get over it. You should be done with it. You should. There's so many shoulds that are heard during grief time. And I think that's one of the words that if you can't say something nice, don't say that word should.
Yeah.
Because I think it throws people back. especially when it gets to the anniversaries or special days like 10, 20 years. Oh, you should be done with that grieving now. You know, it's a memory, it's a moment. And I find the longer we grieve, the more love we had for that person. Um, you know, the reason I asked about the obituary, writing your own obituary, is we don't understand the pressure that we're putting on someone who has just lost a loved one. And then it comes to, you have to have that obituary done within the first week of them gone,
Yeah.
because most services are done within the first week, right? But you haven't even processed that that person is gone yet. And now you have to write that they're no longer here,
Yeah.
you know?
And that's reliving the grief, the sadness, the sorrow that you're going through. Because I found the same sort of thing when I was writing, I forget which book it was, but I was reliving all the experiences. The one I had that jumped out all the time was sitting in the emergency room with Deborah, and the doctor coming in and looking at both of us and saying, Deborah has cancer. Well, talk about knock the wind out of your sails, and every time I would have to do a rewrite of my book, which made me think, okay, how come you're not learning anything here that, you need to cut down on the amount of rewrites you have to do, because every time you do, it's not a coping mechanism that works well for you. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're being re-victimized, right? The triggers are there, and you're going and you're living through the experience, especially when you're writing books on grief, abuse, or mental health or anything like that. You're living that moment again and again.
Yeah.
And writing it on paper, for some it might seem like it's simple, but it's not. Like, you're revisiting those moments in your life, and you're saying, wow, how do I put this to paper? How do I put this with the right wording? It's almost like the grief, right? Where do we find the right wording for something that's going to re-traumatize us or re-trigger us?
Because I'm starting to try something different with book writing, and I'm just wondering, with writing the obituary, if you can't take and block the time, your lived experiences, block the time in 4 or 5 year cycles, and then just come back and write on that cycle. Because I've been trying to figure out, how can I streamline my writing, and what I've come up with is, if I can figure out the chapters, then I can fill each chapter with the content that I need to support the chapter structure. It's worth a try.
So, Doug, are you working on another book?
To be honest, I started here the other day, and I wrote about 4 sentences, and then I put my pen down and I said, okay, that's enough of that for now.
Well, we got the first 4 sentences.
Yeah. It's my intent to do that. I'm actually working on another project that pulls the grief, the silent pandemic. I'm actually getting someone to provide me with a book trailer.
Okay.
Because I think I can use that to help promote my practice.
Yeah, because you don't really talk about your practice too much unless you're talking about the books.
Yeah, and that's the interesting part, is that I've evolved to a place where my books they're available, on all the relevant websites and everything else. But the interest, not my interest, but my readers' interest, has, how I see it anyhow, has diminished somewhat. And part of that is just because it's not new content, it's not new material. And so I'm going to rejuvenate it by doing a book trailer that focuses on on what is it? It's a cinematic story. Whatever that's going to look like or whatever that's going to mean, I have no clue. But we're going to, give it a whirl and see.
I think it'll be cool because we really don't know about your services that you offer, Doug, unless you're talking about the books. So once we get the books out, then we get out what you offer. So
Yeah.
what kind of services do you offer, Doug?
So when I look at what I offer, it's mentoring, mental health, and grief in simplistic forms. So in the mentoring part, I do lots of one-on-one mentoring. I have organizations that bring me in to help mediate conversations. So I do that. I implement mentoring programs in organizations. So I do a fair amount of that sort of stuff. The mental health piece actually ties back into the mentoring part, is that as part of what I offer on the mentoring side, I also target people that are dealing with mental health, so post-traumatic stress, all of those sort of challenges. And it's much the same sort of thing, is, it's walking beside them to help them deal with the situation and stuff. And then finally, the last part of what I offer is the aspect of dealing with using mentoring as part of the support structure for mental health and for dealing with grief. So I go to lots of grief sessions put on by other people. I go and I'm there to listen and hear and stuff like that. Some I'm also a co-facilitator, so a lot of that stuff. But I've logged over 3,500 hours of mentoring, grief mentoring as a whole.
Yeah, because that's what I have here, 3,400 mentoring hours. What has it taught you about people with all that mentoring?
Sorry?
All those hours that you've worked
Yeah.
with different people, what has it taught you, Doug?
Oh gosh, everybody, well, I always say everybody is unique. And so I have to customize my approach to mentoring them based on what I see. So what I've changed when I'm mentoring is I do what I call now a scan. Got to think of different things. So I scan somebody that I'm meeting for the first time, and from that scan, I can determine, do they have issues with their mental health? If so, what's the plan going to be to help them address that? What about the person that isn't really sure what they need? How are you going to deal with that? How are you going to deal with that if you're being brought into an organization and you want to make sure that you're going to be able to provide the relief that they're looking for, and to be able to provide the value. So one of the things I typically will tell people is, come in and kick my tires for a couple sessions, and if it doesn't start your engine, we're probably not a good fit.
Kick my tires, give me a flat tire.
But if you get a sense that we could do some great and wonderful things, then let's talk about setting up some time and set up a contract and all that sort of stuff to do that. So yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Well, you know what? I'll kick the tire and see.
You hear the whistle? The whistle is the air.
The little winch.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, Doug, if you could mentor any place in the world, where would you love to mentor?
Oh, trick question. You know, I I would like to go to Portugal.
Oh, why Portugal?
You know, we went there in what the heck year was it now? 20 2021, 2022. There was 8 of us, all family and friends, and it was a belated 40th anniversary, 40, I think it was 43rd anniversary. So we rented a villa in Portugal, and there was 8 of us, yeah. And we spent 2 weeks being holidayers, and as a result of that, I came away from that. And even Deborah said the same thing. If I was forced or given the offer to move any place in the world, where would it be, and what do you hope to accomplish? And Portugal was mutually agreed to, and it was also the fact that felt could do some really good things in Portugal, work related, mentoring related wise.
Well, for all my Portugal listeners out there, Doug might be coming your way.
You never know.
You never know. I kind of put these little bugs in my guest ears, and then all of a sudden I find out Doug's in Portugal.
Yeah.
Doug, what advice would you give your younger self today?
You know, to accept the fact that what you do is good work, and you need to be able to share that with the rest of the world to help it be a better place to live.
And what's your final message for everybody tonight?
It's okay to ask for help. And I think I'll leave it at that. It's okay to ask for help, because that says it all.
And if anybody wanted to reach you, how could they reach you?
They can obviously reach me on LinkedIn, send me a direct message that way. You can reach me through the website, so www.talentc.ca. And the other part is you can also just send me a direct email message at doug.lawrence, LAWRENCE, at talentc, so the word talent with the letter C on the end, .ca, and I'll get back to you and we can have a conversation and a cup of tea.
Well, before we wrap up, let's get into that tea. Healing, passionate, and feeling. Those 3 words. Why'd you give me those words for your tea?
Okay, I'm all about healing. So obviously that was for one. I'm a passionate sort of individual, so that was why for number 2. I'm kind of one of those touchy-feely type of people, so the passionate part was a natural fit for me. And the feeling part, I'm still grieving. So the feeling part, is something that, depending on where you are in your journey, will also dictate what level of feeling you actually are still being guided by. And you need to wrap your head around what does that look like, and what can I as a person do to help diminish that feeling of whatever you're feeling, sadness, sorrow, all those things.
Well, you just served us a strong cup of tea, and that's the way I like to end the shows, is serving the strong tea of my guests. Doug, it's been a pleasure seeing you again. And again, let's stay connected and continue to support one another. I want to thank all the viewers that tuned in, everybody that sent your questions. Thank you for supporting Miss Liz. I could not do this without all of you guys. I'm just going to do a quick wrap up of what tonight's tea time was all about, and then I'll see everybody next week for the 4 final ones of July, and then we're jumping into August. What a powerful, honest, and deeply human conversation we have shared tonight. Doug, thank you for returning to the Tea Time table, not only as an international respected mentor and author, but as a cherished friend and supporter of the work and purpose behind Tea Time with Miss Liz. Tonight's conversation reminded us that grief does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it lives quietly inside that person who continues showing up, working, caring for others, and telling the world they are okay. Through grief, the silent pandemic, you reminded us that grief comes in many forms. It can follow the death of someone we love, the loss of a relationship, identity, health, career, security, or the future we once believed we would have. We explored the importance of mentoring, compassionate listening, emotional safety, and the courage it takes to ask for support. One of tonight's greatest takeaways is this: healing does not begin when someone gives us all the answers. It begins when someone is willing to sit beside us while we find our way through the questions. Doug, your work reminds us that people do not need to be repaired. They need to be heard. They need to feel safe. They need to know that they are not alone. As we close tonight's tea time, I would like to leave everyone with this thought: who in your life may be carrying grief silently, and how could you present help with them to feel less alone? Sometimes a message, a phone call, a cup of tea, or the simple words "I'm here" can become a lifeline for someone who has been struggling quietly. Doug, thank you for your friendship, your continued support of Miss Liz and Tea Time, and your unwavering commitment to mentoring people through grief, growth, and life's most difficult transitions. Until next time, continue showing up for one another, continue listening without judgment, and continue serving real life tea, truth, experience, and awareness, one compassionate connection at a time. And tonight's takeaway for Miss Liz is: grief may be silent, but no one should have to suffer through it unseen. We may not be able to remove another person's pain, but through presence, mentoring, and genuine human connection, we can remind them that they never have to carry it alone. And I'll see everybody next week, and we'll do this all over again.